Hello, and welcome to the Path of Most Persistence. This is a place where we hear and share tenacious stories of overcoming obstacles with our partners who dare to share a bit of their own personal paths. Cindy Wall recently retired from her part-time position with us, the Nuclear Power Institute. Prior to joining NPI, Cindy served in many prestigious leadership roles within the Texas A&M University system, such as in the National Laboratories Office, the Texas A&M Engineering Experiment Station, and the Texas Engineering Extension Service, creating, managing, and leading working groups, networks, projects in workforce development, outreach, research, technologies, and search and rescue, to name a few. Prior to joining the system, Cindy worked in private industry, supporting manufacturing operations. Cindy earned her Bachelor of Science degree from Texas A&M in Industrial Engineering. Cindy, my friend, my colleague, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's so exciting. You know that I've wanted to have this conversation with you for a long time. I think selfishly because I just love speaking with you, but I think for our audience, anything you have to say will be of value and such a learning experience for everyone. But I want to know, you've tried to retire from the system a few times, but for some reason, you get called back. And for some other reason, you keep responding. You've come back. Can you tell me why you've come back, at least on 2 occasions? I don't know if you've been asked on other occasions, but at least in those 2 separate occasions, why did you come back?
Well, I like to help people. So I do. I mean, I think it's human nature to need to be needed. And I have a lot of experience, and I know a lot of people in the system. Of course, I don't know as many now. It's been 3 years since I first retired. But I had worked with the people who called me back before, and I wanted to help them be as successful as possible. And anything I could do to use my time and talents and my previous knowledge, I was always willing to give it up.
So what is it about helping people? Because in a lot of our conversations, it seems to me that that's always the first place you start off. You always, when I hear you speak, a lot of times that's the first thing I hear from you is your desire to help. What is it about helping people, and where does that come?
I don't know where it comes from. It feels good, especially if you can help. It's very frustrating if you can't, and we've all been in situations where we couldn't improve the outcome the way we would like to have. Right. But I think I've had good models all my career and my life, my family. Service was. My father was in the tire business. He had a Goodyear tire dealership in Waco. And service was huge. He would go out at all hours of the day and night, if needed, to help one of his customers. And something that was on the desk, by the reception desk phone, there was a little sign that said, smile, to prompt them to smile when they answered the phone, because you can't sound angry if you're smiling.
That's right.
When you talk.
Nice.
So.
Did you help your dad in his business?
I did not. My youngest brother did. He was at Daddy's side all the time, and ended up going into the business after college. Mm-hmm. But I was a sprite little thing. I don't think he even considered the option of me helping with the tire business.
He thought your skills would be better used somewhere else, maybe, perhaps.
Right.
And speaking of those skills, you've held such high leadership roles within the system, elsewhere, I'm sure, in all aspects of your life. But tell me about those leadership positions. Maybe talk a little bit about those positions, where they were, what responsibilities you've had and what it is about leadership that you feel especially comfortable in, because obviously you've had to have some comfort. You've had so many.
Well, I guess it started 3 years after I got my first job. I became the supervisor of the industrial engineering department. And maybe I'm naturally a leader. I think I come across as knowing things. Sometimes I don't always really know what I think I know. But I think those very first years of supervising, I got a passion for leadership. I studied it. I would get books. And helping people grow in their career has always been something that I have loved doing. I mean, probably more than any of the particular titles I ever had, is helping people along in their career is so gratifying. And it makes me feel good. Maybe it's a selfish thing, but...
But how can it be selfish if you're helping someone fulfill, their own skills and maybe their own goals? So, but you obviously have a passion for that, and I'm just wondering. You said you've studied leadership. What is it? What are some leadership characteristics that can be learned? Can it be learned, or is it something innate? People.
It can certainly be learned, and I think I'm an example of that. So. Truth in advertising, the first 8 years of my career, the number one criticism on my performance evaluations was tact. I needed more tact. So I am a very straightforward person. I used to be brutally straightforward. And that's not a very good trait of a leader. So I've learned much more, and you never stop learning, about how to speak to people to get the best out of them. Right.
But there is, to me, and I'm sure you've seen it, you've been aware of it, maybe not even it's been intentional for you, but there's definitely a difference between leadership and supervision or managing. What would you see those differences are, and how can we teach those around us some of those skills?
Well, that's challenging. So I think a lot of mine comes from my training as an industrial engineer. The field of industrial engineering, you study the people, the processes, and the tools and equipment around them. And it's all about that all working well together. So supervising, managing, leading, those are all aspects of leadership, in my opinion. You step into roles when you have to, or when it's the thing that needs to be done at that point in time. Not everybody needs leadership all the time, right? Sometimes they just need an ear.
That's right.
And I did learn that because I'm a natural problem solver. When employees would come in, I'm immediately thinking in my mind, how can I help them? When sometimes they just needed to air it out and let it be heard, because sometimes when it comes out your mouth, your ears hear it, and then you realize it's either valid or not so valid.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be solved.
Right. And of all those positions and all those years within the system and helping people grow, and no pressure in this answer, okay?
Okay.
What position did you enjoy the most? I mean, I know you had to have had enjoyment in all of your positions, but what position or what department or what agency did you feel like you personally had the greatest impact, and why?
Okay, so that's a pretty easy one. When I was recruited, if you will, I was recommended for a position with my first position at the Texas A&M Engineering Experiment Station as executive director of an applied research center. Now, research was not I don't have a PhD, never done research, but this particular situation, the leadership there at the time had gotten to a point in that person's career that something's gone awry, and he was acting out, and he did it across agencies, and they wanted to make a change. They did not. They demoted him, if you will, and so he was still under my leadership. But what I'm most proud of is, one, in the 4.5 years I was there, I was able to protect the staff from this negative person when it was needed. And over time, there were so many conflicts, but we ended up on a very good footing, this former leader and I. And he decided to retire on his own, and it wasn't like a force-out thing. He decided it was time. We were on such a good footing when he decided to leave. And because it could have gone way south.
Right.
But all the researchers and staff stuck with me, and we were able to help grow some programs, but mostly heal the organization from some really harsh and kind of resentful, fearful to some degree of this person.
But see, that's exactly it, Cindy, because I think that's something that so many people appreciate about you, that you're somehow able to maneuver in situations like that, where you have been put into a fix-it situation, and you're able to bring those two sides together. Like how you went into a situation that seems a bit tenuous, slightly toxic. I don't know. I don't want to put in words. I don't know the circumstances.
Right.
But that person, you didn't alienate that person, and you kept the team together, and in the end, it was an amicable separation. So how did that happen? That had to have been difficult at some respect, but you almost make it seem so easy. How do you you're stepping in to assist, to keep a team together. How do you keep both sides working in the same direction and then able to separate peacefully?
Well, I think in that situation, I focused on the respect for this person. This person had started the center from the beginning.
Yes.
His talents and influence and knowledge had gotten it to where it was. It had 3 divisions, 3 active research divisions. I can't remember if we had 30 or 40 research engineers or research scientists on staff. And so what he had built was him, you know, and you had to respect what he had built and recognize that he was just in a stage where he didn't know he was at that point where he needed to change. So, and I never knew what it was that would trigger him or create this, but he wasn't always, I don't think he was always that person. And, you know, in just keeping that in mind, that he built what I was now responsible for, and respecting that, and never, ever criticizing or, you know, never trying to tear him down in any way, but to use his talents in his new role to do the best thing for the organization.
Okay. I'm so glad you were going in that direction, because when I first met you a few years ago, it was in a difficult type situation. And what I quickly learned about you is that I'm going to call it a superpower. You have this, sincerely, I think, because not everybody has it. You have this ability to see the strength in everyone. And even when that, let's say a particular person is in a negative space, you still see the positive contributions that they make or have made. And to me, it is though you know what the goal is, what your mission is, to fix it, to correct, to help, but to keep things in a positive trajectory, you stay focused on the positive contributions of the individuals on the team. And that in itself has a disarming effect on everyone that may be feeling awkwardness because of the situations, because of the changes, because of the tensions of the situation. But to me, being hopefully you consider me a friend, because I certainly consider
Absolutely
you a friend.
do.
That is something that I identified quickly in you, that you see people and you choose to see the best qualities of people. And to me, that is lovely. And I thank you for that, because that is a trait that more people, and I'm including myself, need to recalibrate, to refocus on, to harness. And it is inspiring, because truly that is selfless leadership. And I thank you for that, because that is your superpower. So if you don't already know that about yourself, I know you have many superpowers, but that's one for sure.
Well,
so thank you.
Thank you for that.
I want to turn a little bit, because you spent some time in the Systems National Laboratories office. And I don't know what you did during your time there, and I'm fascinated by that office, because from time to time I get to communicate with those folks, and I know a little bit of their work, and I think it's fascinating because they have such an amazing reach. But can you talk a little bit about your time and what you learned most by working in that office?
Well, my role was very small in that office. But because of my prior work with the Engineering Experiment Station, being responsible for the regional divisions, those were partnerships with universities across the state. And one of the national laboratory offices was in Amarillo at the Pantex facility. And so I helped them make connections with our West Texas A&M campus in Canyon, making introductions, facilitating interactions. They really wanted to get some research projects going. I, during that time, reached back to my Applied Research Center colleagues, and they were able to get some projects going up there. And it was about creating partnerships with higher education and the national labs. And so I was a very, very tiny piece of that.
Well, it may have been a tiny piece, but it was a very strong piece, because, again, anytime you talk to any of those individuals in that office or at some of these laboratories, your name comes up, and everybody always has a smile or a positive word when that follows. And I just think it's we're in such a fortunate position that, you know, NPI being part of TEAS and TEAS being a statewide agency, how fortunate that we are that we have all these resources. And then to have a colleague that has had some interaction, some role within this is so significant. And so you bring value to any of our projects, any of our collaborations, and that's, as you retire from us, as you have just recently, makes it very hard to let you go in that way. But we do know where you live and your phone number. So that's really wonderful. But of all those folks and all those laboratories and all these different agencies and networking that you do so beautifully, how do you stay connected? Do you intentionally try to keep those lines of communication open from time to time? I mean, I know you're retired now, but as you maneuvered throughout the system, is it just that you were just so highly active that you always had some sort of connection with folks, or were you deliberate in maintaining some of those connections that you've made over the years? And I ask this question especially for our younger audience or those young professionals that are trying to figure out networking and how best to do it, not in a superficial way just to capture names and titles, but to do it in a way that is enduring and meaningful.
Well, I'm not a very good person at staying connected once I'm out of an organization. But in every role every position I've ever been in, I've had a mentor. And it's not, I don't recall ever trying to seek out a mentor, but someone became a mentor. Usually a boss. My very first boss at Westinghouse, Chris Dubach, God rest his soul, he taught us so many things. Not totally about being an engineer, but about being a good communicator, learning to write and be articulate. And he challenged me, this off the subject a little bit, but public speaking, you get me in front of a room of 5 people, it was too much for me. And he said, you're going to have to figure it out because you're not getting away without speaking to groups of people. So I took Toastmasters and went through that, and that helped me. But I still don't like it, but I'll do it.
And you can do it, and you can do it well.
I can do it. But back to your question, I kept in touch with mentors that I had, and coworkers who became really good friends. And so in that respect, we would network because I'd go have lunch with someone I used to work with, and we'd compare notes. And that was part of networking because we all, throughout our careers, needed a change.
Yeah.
So we would help each other network to the next right thing for each other. And so to the young people, build relationships as you go along. It's work, but it's a lot of your life you spend in your workday. Mm-hmm. So, and in most of, I think it's universally true, the work doesn't get done without people. And you're going to come across people that you don't really care for. Mm-hmm. But I was taught this back at Westinghouse, and you can learn the skills. You don't have to like somebody to work with them and to work with them well. And so try not to make things personal at work, but that doesn't mean you can't make personal relationships and good lifelong relationships with people.
That's a great distinction, and I'm so glad you brought up mentors and on the other side of that, mentorship, because there's that value of having someone that you can look toward and look for guidance and supervision. But how important is it to not only have a mentor, but to be a mentor? Because you probably have had many people that have gone to you for mentorship, maybe directly, and asked for that. But surely you have known that people look to you for mentorship. So is it important, just as important, as in finding the right person for yourself, to that mentor for yourself, but isn't it also true that if you're looking for a mentor, that you yourself should conduct yourself in a way that someone would want to be mentored by you?
I think that's true. Everybody has something to offer, and everybody needs mentorship. And mentorship a lot to me means just helping someone that's going down a path you've been before, and helping them avoid any kind of mishaps that you had, or trying to help them. Some people inevitably have to make their own mistakes.
Right.
But if you can give them that little nudge or that little warning sign that says, I've kind of been in that situation before, and the outcome wasn't the best, and this is why it was for me. So you might want to think about that before you move forward.
And that's I think, the distinguishing mark between mentoring and just basic friendship, because with mentoring, you're giving the honest, objective truth or feedback as you see it.
Right.
Where a friendship, sometimes you just want to coddle your friend or give them that physical or, that support in that emotional way. But that has been something that I think many people appreciate about you too, is that mentorship, that they can go to you for advice, or just to be able to sound off and just to ask, am I crazy? Because I think I've asked you before. Am I crazy?
Yes.
Is this?
And I reinforced it now, yes.
Yes, you are. But I think that's so important, and that's such of great value. And I know many people have looked to you, and I hope that especially the young people that we work with are actively, if they don't already actively, look to those that maybe as a true mentor that they go to, or just one that they look to maybe in silence. I don't know, but they're always looking for someone to model for them, because it's hard. It's hard going through a professional career. Have you ever had any difficulties within your prestigious professional career? Have there been any obstacles or roadblocks that you've ever had to persist through or over that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I guess I can tell the story of the time I was fired from a job that I thought was my dream job. I thought I had reached the pinnacle of my career. And I'd only been in my professional life for like 11 years, 12 years. So that was a wake-up call to me. It was devastating, personally. I felt completely unworthy and didn't know what was going to be next. And that's at a time when faith takes you through, and family and friends. But it turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me. So, I mean, I was unemployed, so I mucked horse stalls for a neighbor for a while. It got me up out of bed every morning, gave me something useful to do. And then so I had prior network people, mentors. So I made contacts, and an opportunity of a lifetime came about with TEAX, Engineering Extension Service. They were starting a program. Manufacturing was my professional love, and they were starting up a program to assist small and medium-sized manufacturers across the state. I got lucky enough to be the first engineer they hired for the program, at least in the A&M part of that program. And we built, it was all from scratch, pretty much. We were implementing a proposal that had been written to the federal government, and that program still goes on to this day. Very proud of that work.
That has to be something.
But that was, I mean, some of the best experiences I ever had. I mean, part of what got me around, I mean, I traveled the whole entire state of Texas for about 5 or 8 years. So I got to know a lot of people, and I got to meet a lot of interesting people, really smart people, and see a lot of interesting things.
Cindy, I want to go back to that, because I think Cindy Wall and being fired doesn't mix for a lot of people. But I'm so thankful that you share that, because it does happen. Bad things happen to good people too.
That's true.
But I want to spend a little bit of time on that, because I think, as wonderfully as you put it, that it ended up being a blessing, great things. Your professional career took off in a way you probably had never anticipated. But there's that gap between that moment you were informed that you were fired and that moment that you were hired. There's that gap where lots of things can go very wrong. From my estimation, and living life and witnessing things and experiencing things myself, there's choices people make every day, all day long. And sometimes when bad things happen, like being fired, and deservedly so, people can get really bitter. They can get really angry. They can say things and do things. In the moment of frustration, they may feel very justified in those moments because they were mistreated. It was undeserved. And then, because of that, that takes that person in a whole different path because of that moment. And then there are those, such as yourself, that did some work, some manual work, it seems, took some time, and then you had another opportunity present itself. How can someone transition to keep their life positive and keep looking toward that the next phase of life, or having that faith that the next phase of life, it's going to be a blessing, that horrible moment when you're fired or something bad happens, how do you stay positive in a way that you can hang on until that blessing occurs, that next wonderful opportunity occurs? Because lots of things can go wrong in that gap. So how do you maintain?
So one is to surround yourself with positive people. I was very fortunate to have my partner with me through that entire process. But honestly, I went to a therapist for a lot of it to build back and reach into myself to see something positive again. And I don't, it wasn't life or death. So I won't say it was easy, but you have to put things in perspective. My partner gave me a little magnet with a saying, success is a journey, not a destination.
There you go.
And I had to really focus on that year after year, all through my career, because you can get so busy working for that thing that you think you got to have.
Yes.
And you can miss so many things along the way that are awesome. So that's the blessing in disguise. I got stopped dead in my tracks. Yep. I was going full speed ahead, and there was a reason that I needed to stop and reflect, rethink, apply for jobs.
Yes.
Like, I was very fortunate. Up to that point, I had never applied for a job that I wasn't just referred to. So, humble pie is a good thing to eat every once in a while.
I think you're right. It's good practice. It cleanses the system, I think. But I do appreciate you sharing about seeking help, speaking with a therapist, because I think that is such a useful service that unfortunately not as many people take advantage of for whatever reason. But the more we speak of it, for those of us that have used a therapist, a counselor, whoever you go to look for guidance and support, I think that it normalizes it for those that are intimidated by it or afraid of it for whatever reason. So thank you for bringing that up, because so many of us are struggling, and I think especially during COVID the last 2 years and all the stresses that come along, I think that's really been a problem for many people. And so looking for help, looking for guidance and support and therapy has been something that has been very intentional in how we talk about it. So thank you for that. And I think it's a wonderful thing when we can encourage others to find somebody to talk to. We should. And with that, because life is hills and valleys, right?
For sure.
One moment you're on top, and the next minute you find yourself in a valley. And it's a good time, I think, to evaluate where you are in life, and having somebody, again, like a mentor, a therapist, a counselor, a friend, a spouse, a partner, whoever it is, to bounce off your thoughts and making sure you're in that frame of where it is you need to be in your life. So to pivot just a little bit, because of your background with higher ed, the private sector, what is it that higher ed and the private sector can do better to build programs and initiatives for the future workforce, because especially with NPI, as you know, our whole mission is to help build the Texas workforce, and we spend a lot of our time with K-12, partnering with higher ed. But we can't do it alone. No matter how wonderful our university partners are, we need private, we need public assistance. How can we better work with industry and higher ed? How can we do a better job of coming together to meet those missions?
Well, I think that, first of all, the NPI programs are tremendously impactful in a very positive way. And kudos to you for building that into that. It's a model that I think should be invested in heavily to build and further seed your energy and the energy of your team. The creativity is amazing. The connecting higher ed and industry with the K through 12, it's hard because everybody is so busy and resources are so strapped. But really, it's about a lot of what you've done in MPI is get to know who's around you. The industry in your community is who's going to hire the people coming out of your education programs. Understand what they need, get them involved and invested in it. Now, how to do that, I'd probably be famous and rich if I could figure that out. It all comes back to resources and time and the willingness. And I think for higher ed, too. I mean, I'm not an expert in higher ed by any means. I've just been around it a lot. But higher ed's got to produce graduates who can get a job and can fill the needs. And we're in such a big need right now. The entire country, I think. I like a lot of what I see with more emphasis on trades. Even the engineering students here, I believe, are doing trade work with TSTC.
That's right.
And that's the kind of training I got when I was in college. Hands-on, understanding how things get built and how things work is very important. It's not just about what the theories are, because very few of the graduates are going to go on to be research scientists or PhDs. But we need those too. So I don't really know if I've answered your question. I really do think that there needs to be more investment in programs like MPI has. And because y'all are doing a whole lot of good with very few resources, and the bang for the buck is tremendous.
Well, thank you for that, Cindy. And we've always appreciated your help and your support in all of those endeavors. But I think, when you speak about that, you are so unassuming when it comes to that, because you do know what it is. You may not know that you know, but I see you in these meetings. And to me, it's about those relationships you've built over time. And I think for us, if it's working with K-12, higher ed, industry, private, whatever it is, that's all based on relationship building. It's getting to understand everyone's perspective and what they need and what resources they have to share and where it all comes together. And again, learning so much from you, it is about building those relationships so you can have those conversations that are meaningful, that take, or just more than just sitting in a meeting and letting the time go by or going through the itinerary or the agenda. And so, again, I want to applaud your demonstration of having those kinds of relationships and conversations with folks that you can reach into a sector that you normally don't live in the air that, or breathe the air that they breathe, and I just want to acknowledge you in that, because you didn't acknowledge yourself, and you have high skill levels in that. So,
well, thank you. I have been tremendously blessed and fortunate to have been able to work with so many talented, knowledgeable, world-class, recognized people that, some days you just go, they will answer my text or my email. Really? It's very gratifying, and I'm grateful for having the opportunities I've had. I never have been a person that's going to stay in one job and do one thing for all my life. I like change, and I've had a career of having that opportunity to change. And I think for your young people, becoming more self-aware, and it took me many years to do that, knowing whether you're that person who wants to study this subject and become a world-class researcher in that problem area, or if you're this person who needs versatility in your career, and challenges, new challenges. Knowing that about yourself can help you navigate through your career. Mm-hmm. Because whatever you do right out of school, whether it's high school or college, is not necessarily going to be the thing you're doing 10 years later.
That's exactly true.
We don't really know. So go in with as open a mind as you can, because you may have big thoughts and big dreams about exactly what you want and where you want to go. Sometimes that's not, in the bigger scheme of things, where you need to be. And so just be open to the signs and doors that may open that you don't know that you need to go through.
That's beautiful. Before you started answering that question, I was going to ask you, as we close out, is there anything else that you'd like to add, to send out as messages to our audience? But that sounds absolutely perfect.
Thank you.
So, as we close out this conversation, I want to say to you, thank you again for coming and speaking with us. I know you, in your retired life, have many things that you could be doing, better places to be, but you said yes to us. So I will be eternally grateful to you and all your mentorship and all your guidance that you've given me these past few years that I've had the honor of knowing you.
Well, in the short period of time I've known you, I've learned a lot from you. I admire and respect your energy, your compassion, your passion, your popcorn, all that. And it's been a great time working with you. And thank you for letting me do this. Thank you for making me do this.
There it is, right there. So to our audience, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you had the opportunity to listen to the entire conversation. And if you haven't already, please listen to some of our other conversations. Before we close out, I just want to wish you all well. To my friend Cindy, all the best in your new role in retirement. And to you all, have a great day.